I'm going to get ahead of this before someone goes in the comments section and says, you stole this idea. Yeah, it's the offseason in college football. And us as content creators, sometimes we see something and we want to put our own little spin on it, which is exactly what I'm doing. Greg McElroy of Always College Football, ESPN podcast. If you haven't heard it, make sure you go listen. Recently came out with his way too early percentages of teams that can win a national championship. And so I don't want to go that far, but I do believe that there are a lot of teams that can make the college football playoff in 2024, especially now that we have a 12-team postseason picture. And I figured, let's go ahead and give you my percentages of teams I believe will go to the college football playoff, simply based off of record, strength, and overall roster. But real quickly, my name is Cole Thompson. I talk college football daily. So if this is the type of content you enjoy, make sure that you hit subscribe, the ring notification. That way you don't miss a single episode of Just Saying It. And of course, tell your friends, family, mortal enemies, best of bros, college football freaks, and fanatics everywhere about this channel, because we're on the race to become the #1 YouTube show talking about our favorite sport. But more importantly, I want to be the #1 college football community here on YouTube. Follow me on all the social media platforms, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I got you covered. It's the exact same as my YouTube handle, at Mr. Cole Thompson. And if you want to have a one-off video or be a part of the Mailbag Monday, because we are doing it this week, even though it is Memorial Day, email me, colethompsonwriting@gmail.com. Percentages of making the college football playoff. Here's the way I view this. There's 100% going to be at least 3 teams from the Big Ten and 3 teams from the SEC going to the postseason. Now, how that goes about, that's a different story. I also believe that there is going to be conversations of at least 2 teams from the Big 12 and 2 teams from the ACC, depending on what their records are, and of course, how things pan out and what they are viewed as a rating. And then Notre Dame, if they have a certain number of wins, I think that they're going to get in as well. You're throwing a group of 5 school. I honestly think that you're going to see 5 SEC teams listed at the end of the day. But here are my odds. Here are my percentages of what I think they will make the playoff. Let's just go ahead and put a baseline. You have to be 9-3 or higher. All right, Georgia Bulldogs, 99%. If they don't go 9-3, if they go 8-4, they're not going to the college football playoff. If they go 8-4, it is one of the worst seasons in Bulldogs history, because this team just reloaded. It literally felt like this offseason, Kirby losing and not going to the college football playoff was like him pushing all the chips in the pile, hitting 21 on the blackjack table, say, let it ride, hit 21 again, then watch the dealer bust, and he makes back all of his money. Because that's what he did. Top 3 recruiting class, number 3 ranked transfer portal, if I'm not mistaken. The guys added in the transfer portal were studs, from Trevor Etienne to London Humphreys to Colby Young. There's a lot of talent coming onto this roster and a lot of talent returning to this team. You look at their schedule, it's also extremely manageable. Clemson week 1, Alabama on the road, Texas on the road, at Ole Miss, Tennessee to close out the year. Those are 5 games where you can lose 3, and I still think you'd be in the college football playoff. Kind of same thing goes for Ohio State. I'll go 98, and the only reason I have them at 98 versus 99 is because their roster is so stupid loaded. I mean, honestly, they didn't lose a lot. They brought back everybody. Some of those names that you thought were going to go pro said, no. This is not the way I want to end my tenure in Columbus. Guys like Tyleik Williams, guys like JT Tuimalau, guys like Jack Sawyer, Denzel Burke, Emeka Egbuka. You brought back Donovan Jackson on the offensive line, Travion Henderson. They're good. They have quarterback options. Will Howard is the favorite. I did a video talking about him to where, yes, he should be the solution, but at the same time, he doesn't have to be the X factor for your team. And if he's not, you got Aaron Nolan. You got Julian Sang, the #1 quarterback commit. You also still have Lincoln Kineholtz and Devin Brown. You upgraded your rushing attack with the addition of Quinshon Judkins. You still have an exceptional defense that's now headlined by, in my opinion, the 2nd best defensive player in college football, Caleb Downs, who's a freshman. And he's going to a system that better caters to him because they love utilizing safeties for Jim Knowles. Your schedule, it is a cakewalk outside of 2 games. Penn State on the road, Oregon on the road. And I don't put Michigan on here because Michigan's at home. This roster is good enough to beat Michigan. They just lost everybody except for a few high-profile names of the defense. They're a good team, but the 2 road trips are the ones that you're worried about. You go 10-2, you're going to the college football playoff. Oregon, 90%. Oregon, again, is stacked. They are the Frankenstein monster that just does not want to die, and they have arguably the best coach in college football that you would put your money on to continue to improve. Because I'm not ready to put Dan Lanning in any top 5 category. I'm not ready to put Dan Lanning in any top 6 category. I'll say 7's fine. I'll say 9 is fine. I'll say top 10, absolutely. But this is the guy that you are hoping and putting your money on that is only going to get better with age. He's not even 40 yet. Like, let's get the guy a couple of years to truly build his legacy in Eugene before anything else. But he's got a roster. He does. You don't lose almost anything on the offensive line. Yeah, Jackson Powers-Johnson. You feel good about his replacement. You don't upgrade with Bo Nix at quarterback, but you might bring in a lateral move with the addition of Dylan Gabriel for the same offense that just brought you to a top 12 pick and a Heisman finish. Tez Johnson is back. You can lose Troy Franklin. You replace Troy Franklin with the addition of Texas A&M's Evan Stewart. On top of that, you have a great defensive line that was also just brought in with more players, including the kid that you got from Michigan State. You still have Uingale on the outside. You brought in Jabbar Muhammad to play cornerback. You're a good overall roster. You're talented. And the question is, where's the loss? Because it's not week 1 to Idaho. It's not week 2 to Boise State. It's not on the road against Oregon State in the Civil War 2.0. Is it against Michigan in week 3? In week 9? Is it all the way down to the very end of the season in week 12 against Wisconsin? Is it at home against Ohio State? Even then, you go 10-2. You're probably going to Indianapolis. You go to Indianapolis. You're going to the college football playoff. Texas, 90% as well. I'm a lot higher on Texas than probably most should. I also know that Texas has the right offensive consistency. They have the identity. They have a veteran quarterback going into a new conference. Kind of like Oregon, they're sitting there as the next team in line. They're good. They're solid. They're complete. They're humming. And the big thing is, I believe that they're going to make the transition to the SEC with these. I have no doubt about that whatsoever, especially when you look at what was added in from the portal pieces. Love the addition of Bill Norton. Love the addition of Silas Bolden. Love the addition of several of your defensive players, including adding in Andrew Makuba, adding in Trey Moore from UTSA. They're in a really good spot. Their schedule, it has some hiccups, but nothing to be that far-fetched about. 9-3, you made it to the college football playoff last year. You're a big brand team. You're going to the CFP. Ole Miss, 85%. Ole Miss, I think, has to go 10-2 because they're not as big as a brand as the 4 listed above them. But here's the thing I will say. Ole Miss also should go 10-2 because that's what the record says. And on top of that, that's what the roster says. You're allowed to drop one game. Maybe it's to Georgia. Maybe it's to LSU. Maybe it's to Oklahoma because if you're looking forward to another matchup, you're allowed to drop one game. Dropping 2 is a bit of an insult, but it's not a death sentence. What they return offensively is absolutely stupid. Like, imagine that scene in Looney Tunes where they all put their hand on the basketball and then turn into the Monstars. Imagine now adding in like Juice Walls, that being the transfer portal. That's the ball, and then everybody, and then just wow, one after another after another. Jackson Dart, Caden Priestcorn, Trey Harris. You also bring back Ulysses Bentley. You bring back Jared Ivey. You bring back J.J. Pegas. You also add in Walter Nolan, Princely Umanlielen, Juice Wells. You bring in a ton of running backs. Honestly, you lose Quinshon Judkins. I don't believe quality is better than quantity. I believe quality is always better than quantity, but there's enough quantity to say that you have the quality. Your schedule is extremely manageable, too. You have 3 games you have to worry about. LSU, Oklahoma, Georgia. You avoid Texas A&M. You avoid Tennessee. You avoid Alabama. There is no reason why going into year 5 of the Lane Kiffin era, this should not end with a postseason berth. If not even further, I'm potentially seeing a couple postseason wins. Penn State, here's the deal. Nut up or shut up. And I know that this is sometimes supposed to be a PG show. I don't really care. Grow up. Time to be a big boy. Put on your pants and be ready to go ahead and go to war because this roster is too damn good. You have no excuse this year, James Franklin. Nobody in State College is going to give you the excuse. Happy Valley is going to be a dark, depressing place if you can't get to the postseason. Because everything that you've been building towards for the last few years, especially in recruiting, has led to this moment. Veteran quarterback in Drew Aller, 2 great running backs in Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. You feel good about your offensive line, and well, you should. You still have a great linebacking core. You bring in Abdul Carter from linebacker to edge, kind of like a Micah Parsons. Why wears number 11? Shocker on that one. You also lose your offensive coordinator because it was time to fire Mike Urich, and you upgrade with Andy Kotlanicki. And Kotlanicki, if anybody knows him, is especially potent in explosive plays downfield. Tom Allen, really, really good running back. You feel really, really positive. On top of that, you also avoid one of your key matchups against Michigan. So that throws it out. 10-2 is good enough to get you to the playoff. You got to be 10-2 or better. Alabama, 70%. Here's why I have Alabama at 70. Because when you look at this roster, their schedule still has some hiccups. They play LSU, they play Tennessee, they did lose the GOAT, but you bring in arguably the best consolation prize. Kalen DeBoer with this offense, if you get the version of what we think Jalen Milroe can be, and he doesn't lose anything with his legs, and he doesn't lose anything with his mobility, and he still has the deep shot, that's a Heisman caliber player. That is 100%. I will not put him in that category, but he is a Heisman caliber player. Ryan Williams comes on in as a 5-star plus talent. They still have a good defense. It's changing underneath Kane Womack. On top of that, Jeremy Bernard, I think, is going to break out, and everyone's going to know his name. It's going to be basically cheers in Bryant-Denny Stadium when he gets in the end zone. Jeremy! 70%. It's Alabama. They're always going to get the benefit of the doubt. The script day is going to carry a lot of weight. 9-3 gets in the postseason. Missouri, 70%. Again, I think 10-2 you got to go ahead and get to. But here's the thing. Find 2 losses. Find 2 losses for the Tigers going into this year, especially with what returns on offense. I know the line is going to be a big question mark, but you did bring over Caden Green, but you did lose Javon Foster, and you replaced him with Marcus Bryant from SMU. You did lose Cody Schrader, but you replaced him with Marcus Carroll. Where's the flaw? Honestly. And where's the game? Oklahoma? Yeah, I completely understand. There's also going to be a few more hiccups along the way, but nothing to write home about. This is an Eli Drinkwitz-led team that should be able to go deeper and deeper into the postseason. Utah, 70%. Their schedule, it is very challenging down the stretch. But here's the thing. Death, taxes, Kyle Whittingham fighting for a playoff spot and fighting for a conference championship. Wash, rinse, repeat. You got 2 trick games, Arizona and Oklahoma State at the beginning of the year. Close out the year with Iowa State and UCF. You still have Cam Rising. You still have Brayton Keithy. I love the addition of Dorian Singer for this offense. They do a great job of taking 3-star talent and 2-star talent and turning them into household figures in Salt Lake City. And I think Rice Eccles Stadium not only is one of the most beautiful atmospheres in college football, but that's going to become a cathedral of chaos. That is a very special brand that I have come up with of just teams that you don't want to play in an environment you don't want to go to. In the Big 12, that absolutely can be there. I know what I'm getting with Brayton Keithy. I know what I'm getting with Cam Rising. I know what I'm getting with Kyle Whittingham. If they go 10-2, they're going to Arlington. They're going to the college football playoff. Notre Dame, 60%. You got to be 10-2 because if you're an independent. You're never going to get the first round bye. You're never going to be a team that's going to be able to probably host multiple playoff games, but you are a team that could be the 5 seed. You are a team that could be really, really loaded. You are a team with Mike Denbrock coming on in. I love the additions on defense. I love what you returned on defense with Xavier Watch and Benjamin Morrison. Riley Leonard holds the key here. The offensive line holds the key here. They all correlate together. You're still a ground and pound physical offense, and you have a defense headlined by an exceptional coach. How can you not like Notre Dame's chances, especially if they're 10-2? Michigan, 60%. Brand new coach, brand new defensive coordinator, brand new quarterback, same mantra. That's the way that I view this Michigan team. Can we stop for a minute and just say that Michigan is going to completely regress? What changed overnight? You lose Jim Harbaugh. Okay. You lose J.J. McCarthy. Okay. You lose a couple of playmakers on offense like Roman Wilson. Okay. Did you lose the expectations? Did you lose the entire coaching staff? Was this a brand new unit brought in? No, it was Sharon Moore going from being the co-offensive coordinator and interim coach to getting the interim tag removed. Same mantra, same defensive front, same defensive mechanisms. Now you get Wink Martindale in there. Also, let's continue to know that Mason Graham is a top 5 player in the sport. Will Johnson is the best cornerback in college football. On top of that, you have the best tight end in Colson Loveland. And if Alex Orji can just get the ball in playmakers' hands and avoid mental mistakes, you're still a playoff team. And you just won a national championship. You don't think 9-3 as an 11 seed is going to be a factor here? You don't think that 10-2, even if you don't go to Indianapolis, is going to be a factor here? Stop it. You're out of your mind. Miami, 60%. I have Miami at 60% because that they have to kind of get to the playoff this year. In my opinion, this feels like a roster that is trending upward, and they're doing themselves no favors with sky-high expectations in Coral Gables with what was added in via the portal in the second wave. You got Simeon Barrow. You got Tyler Barron. You got Jalen Ackerman. You got Damian Martinez. You got Samuel Brown. And you added them into Cam Ward, who is a much more stable fit for this offense underneath Shannon Dawson going into 2024 than I think Tyler Van Dyke was. On top of that, You still have one of the best offensive lines. You still have one of the best defensive lines headlined by Bain. You still have a good secondary. And your schedule, once you get past Florida State, manageable as all hell. You can drop 2 games. Maybe it's to Louisville and Florida State. Maybe it's to Virginia Tech and Louisville. Maybe it's to Florida and Cal. Who's to say? What I am telling you is that this is a game that if you go 10-2, Miami, their branding, Miami, the NIL funds, Miami, what they'll do for ratings carries a lot of weight. You win the ACC, which I think that right now they are the favorites in my book. I'm going to go ahead and consider them. But if you just get to 10-2, what your overall persona is, what do you represent in college football is going to do some numbers. LSU, 50%. I'm on board with Greg McElroy on this one. Plain and simple. You want to know why? Because when we talk about LSU, there's not going to be a drop-off on offense. Yeah, you lose a Heisman Trophy winner. Yes, you lose 2 first-round wide receivers. Yes, you lose a couple of other players, including your offensive coordinator. You still have Emory Jones and you still have Will Campbell. Will Campbell is the best player in college football, in my opinion. Pound for pound, the best player in college football. Garrett Nussmeier is no slouch. He gets this offense like the back of his hand. They have wide receivers. They don't have wide receiver U attached to their name for a reason. They bring in CJ Daniels, absolute playmaker. This was a kid that at Conference USA last year balled out, would ball out immediately in the SEC. Xavier Thomas is pure speed. He's lightning in a bottle. I will not be shocked to see him have the fastest time in college football this year. They also have good tight end play. They also have a good running back tandem. I really like what you bring in with Caleb Jackson. I like Caden Dunham. My apologies. This all comes down to defense. And I'm not talking about Harold Parkins. I'm talking about your defensive line. I'm talking about your secondary. And I'm talking about Blake Baker making the changes that need to be done last season that cost this team a playoff spot. Brian Kelly made changes. That was the big win here. People want to say that, oh, he's stuck in his ways. Oh, he can't win the big game. Well, he just proved to you that he's not loyal to anybody if results don't pave the way. And he's willing to spend a little bit more extra cash to bring in a guy like Blake Baker if that's going to benefit this team. Tough schedule, but again, this defense plays up to par. They're going to be fine. Florida State, 50%. Plain and simple. Can these all transfers mesh together the exact same way? Mike Norvell, he's locked in. It's very clear that he is prominently going to be stable in Tallahassee. Schedule's manageable. How do you feel about DJU? How do you feel about replacing Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman? How do you feel about the running back room? You bring in Roydell Williams, so experience is key. How do you feel about this team moving forward? Schedule, very manageable down the stretch. I like this overall roster. Next up, Kansas State, 50%. This all comes down to defense for me because offensively, just go ahead and run the wishbone and have fun. Like, honestly, have the wishbone. Avery Johnson, DJ Giddens, one of the best running backs in college football. You also still have you also bring in Dylan Edwards, really good player. I think he's talented. 3 games I'm watching for this year: Arizona, Oklahoma State, and close out the year with Iowa State. If you win all 3, you're going to Arlington. You go to Arlington, all bets are off. I will not be shocked to see you make that jump. Tennessee, 40%. Love the offensive additions. This all comes down for me for secondary because the defensive front, it's improved. Nico Iamaleava, he's a young quarterback, but he's a high-profile quarterback. If your secondary has more holes than Swiss cheese, you're not going to the playoff. But this is the team that could be that number 5 SEC roster. Clemson, 40%. The reason I have Clemson at 40%, Vegas still has them as the second best odds to win the ACC title. Yeah, they do. They have 2 young wide receivers that you are hoping are going to hit in TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco. The thing I love, still a good defense. They still have one of the best defensive fronts. Barrett Carter's back. Peter Woods is back. You also still have a very good, consistent mind when it comes to the offensive identity in Garrett Riley and Cade Klubnik. Can the running back room pick up without Will Shipley? And can this team actually prove you don't need the transfer portal? Oklahoma State, second most returning production in college football. Ollie Gordon is back. You have a very solid defense. It is a team that can go far. Their schedule does not do them any favors. Arkansas, that is a difficult matchup. Not also going to mention that even though it's at Boone Pickens, it still is tricky. Utah, Kansas State, West Virginia, BYU. 3-game stretch that is absolutely dreadful. I think Texas Tech is going to be a sleeper in terms of playing the spoiler role, but they are a veteran roster. Veteran rosters mean something. Arizona, I'm a lot higher on the Wildcats than most. They're going to pounce. I love the addition of Ja'Cory Crockett-Massett. Ja'Cory Crockett-Massett. You know what I'm trying to say. I'm blanking on words. I've been going for a minute. Kendrick Renfro coming on in for the running back room. Noah Fafita's there. You also have a very good defense headlined by Jacob Manu and Takario Davis. Their schedule is easy down the stretch. You can lose a game to UCF late in the year, but as long as you split the series with Utah and Kansas State, one of which is not a conference game, you're in good hands. Oklahoma State, here's the good news when it comes to them. Oklahoma, my apologies. Oklahoma has an explosive offense. It's just got to hit its stride. When does that happen? Is it too late in the season? Is it after Red River where they just go on a tirade and win every single game with wins over wins over Ole Miss and Alabama? This could be a 9-3 team that simply because of its brand gets into the postseason. But Jackson Arnold is a quality quarterback. I love this defense. It's not a good Big 12 defense. It's a great defense in college football. And if they can get through some wins very early on, some trick-ups, they're fine. USC, offensive identity, they're going to be explosive. Defense, I have no idea what it is. But you have a top 30 defense, you're probably going 10-2. You have a top 50 defense, probably going 9-3. Can you get any defensive identity? Iowa State, 25%. Reason I have them at 25% is because of I don't know what this team is going to be, but I do know that they have a lot of returning offensive production. They have the most production returning in college football. Difficult schedule every single year, but Matt Campbell is an innovator. He's a game planner. He gets this sport, and I think Rocco Beck has a breakout season. Iowa, 20%. Long story short, can you have an offense? Because your defense is going to be top 10 every single year. Can you have an offense? If you have an offense, you have a shot. Last team for you, NC State. I know I didn't put the space between it. It's Wolfpack. It's 2 words. I love NC State. I love the addition of Grayson McCall. I love Justin Jolly. Their schedule, again, extremely manageable. You have some trick-ups. Tennessee in week 2. That's going to be a litmus test. You also have games against Syracuse. Then you close out the year. Stanford, Duke, Georgia Tech, North Carolina. You avoid Miami. You avoid Florida State. This is a roster. Do not be shocked. 9-3, 10-2. I will not be kidding myself if I see them go to Charlotte at 11-1. And if they are 11-1, I don't know how you're keeping Dave Duran's teams out. But those are my odds going into the year, percentages of making the college football playoff. Comment down below. What are your percentages? Do you think that there are teams that I'm too high on, too low on? Like, rate, review, subscribe. Make sure that you tell your family, friends, mortal enemies, best of bros, college football freaks everywhere about this channel because we're on the race to become the #1 YouTube show talking about our favorite sport. Make sure that also you're following me on all the social media channels at Mr. Cole Thompson. That way conversations surrounding college football never have to stop flowing. And also, want to be a part of the Mailbag Monday? Go ahead and email me, colethompsonwriting@gmail.com. I'm Cole Thompson. Have a happy, safe rest of your Memorial Day weekend. Please remember to drink responsibly. And for those who have served in our armed forces, currently are serving, or ultimately laid down their lives for the greatest sacrifice of protecting this country, thank you for your service. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your Memorial Day weekend. We'll be back here tomorrow. Later. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. That's awesome. Thank you so much. But before you leave, make sure that you hit subscribe. And if you want to check out any of our other great work, make sure you click on one of the videos here. Am I pointing at the right spot? I'm not entirely sure. I'm really not.